Hi, everyone, and welcome to El Camino People, the podcast. Today, we are doing a live podcast, and we have with us Blake. How are you doing, Blake? And the connection is quite horrible today. So I don't know if Blake, if you're with us.
There we go.
Wow, perfect. Yeah, it changed quite quickly, the quality of the video. So I was saying that finally today we are doing a live podcast, and we have Blake Farha with us. So how are you doing, Blake?
I'm very well, thanks. And yourself?
No complaints. Now that I can see you and hear you perfect, it's just incredible. It just seems like everybody quit Netflix and they are already watching our live today.
Exactly. They've all switched over. Yeah, I have to admit, part of me always gets very nervous that I'm going to be making a very bad face whenever the computer cuts out, and I'll be caught with my face distorted.
It is funny, yeah, but that's the beauty of the lives. We never know what's going to happen, and I guess that's also like the Camino. Never know
Very
what's going
much.
to happen next and what's going to waiting for you there. So I always like to start with the news about the Camino. Everybody now is eager to listen to what's going on in Spain, what's happening, and we have finally news. Finally, this week, the president of Spain said that the state of alarm is going to be ending on May 9th. So what does it mean? Right now, the situation for international pilgrims is great. According to the rules and the regulations, as they said, international pilgrims can travel in Spain. They can come to Spain. They can do the Camino. There's pilgrims arriving to Santiago every day. I think the other day there were like close to 200 pilgrims getting to Santiago. So some of them Galicians that they're finally being able to move, but some of them international. As I've been hearing about Germans and people, from Italy, but still Spaniards, we're not allowed to cross borders from one state to the other. So on May 9th, that means that everyone is going to be able to come to Spain and walk the Camino.
All right. So there's the end is in sight.
At least that's what I say. What I'm telling everyone, that we, Spain, we work as a different state. So the regulations may change from one state to the other. As right now, some places, the numbers are increasing, quite hard, and others are going down. So if you still come, in May, you have to be able to expect that maybe you have to jump, one stage or jump a whole state or be stuck in a state for a couple of days. So when you come back, so the unknown of the whole situation that you may be able to, if you have COVID, can you go back to your country, or you have to stay in a hotel, or that kind of things that is the unknowns of the Camino and the unknowns of the new normal, as people like to say, no?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I guess if you're going to come do the Camino now, you should be coming ready to improvise.
I guess ready to improvise, having extra days, having extra money, having a good insurance. So that's what we're here. Remember, we have the service we are here to provide to help you, anyone. We are here in Pamplona, so whatever you guys need, that's it. And things will change. But at least, we have finally that day that I think we are all were expecting, 9th of May. Spain goes back to normal, no state of alarm. But that means, that's illegal. We're allowed to move and everything, but a lot of albergues are still opening. Some may not open again, but at least we know that we are getting ready little by little to go back to that Sacobeo that has been extended for 2 years. So are you ready for your next Camino or no yet?
Actually, I was just flipping through my book the other day, and I was reading about I was thinking it's time. I have to do it again. But then I also was thinking, but it's a lot of work, and it is very hard. Maybe I'll wait a little while.
That is true. It is a lot of work, but as we know, it is totally worth it. So, as you know, we never done this yet before live. It's always been on a podcast and recorded, but we always start with the 1-minute questionnaire.
Yeah.
We have this list of questions, and because Blake is the second pilgrim that is being, interviewed both in English and Spanish. So next week, when we publish the podcast, that will be published next week, you will be able to listen to both the interviews in Spanish and in English. So if you are fluent in both, it will be fun to see, the differences, or if there is any. But as you know, 1 minute, all our Camino-related questions. You did quite well in the morning, but now I'm going to change them. They're going to be random, so they're going to be
okay. All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Timer on. Your first Camino.
Norte.
1 month to walk.
August.
One private hostel.
Somewhere that I stayed in Bo de Piálagos.
I smell.
Tortilla.
Canteen or Camelback?
Neither.
Long pants or short pants?
Shorts, definitely.
Omelette with or without onions?
With onions, clearly.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
One pilgrim?
Marley.
A drink?
Water.
One country?
Spain.
A backpack brand?
Alpine Low.
A brand of sneakers or tennis shoes or whatever
Solomon.
you call it. 1 hour to start walking?
5:30 a.m.
1 hour to arrive?
3 p.m.
Spaghetti with?
With whatever it is, with.
With. That is, it's been the first time, and it is so fun, because it's. How do you think now? You were prepared. We did this in Spanish in the morning. How did it feel to do it in your in your home language?
Definitely easier. Yeah. I thought it would maybe be easier in Spanish because I didn't have I wouldn't have the time to like get emotional about it. It's just like a first logical decision. But no, definitely easier in English.
I would like to let everybody that is watching us, on Facebook and on YouTube, thank you for being with us today. Hopefully we would like to start doing more lives, but it takes a lot of work, and we are working on a lot of projects right now, big projects that's going to be Camino projects. But that if you want, you can ask any question anytime during the interview, we'll post it and we'll ask Blake, or you can ask me anything about what we're talking today. So, the first question, when did you get in touch with the Camino? What was your first time that you remember that you heard about that magical way, the way the Camino de Santiago, the way of St. James, St. Jacob's Web, or Le Chemin de St. James?
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you for being patient in advance, because you'll have already heard all of these answers today. Hopefully, it'll feel different because it's in English. The first time that I heard about the Camino was in 2011. I was living in a small city in France called Auxerre, and I was teaching English there. And I was unsure when my contract was ending what exactly I was going to do, whether I was going to return home or what was supposed to happen. At the time, I was supposed to move to Germany to be with my ex-girlfriend, but we separated we broke up right before then. And so I was really at a loss of what to do. And I was driving somewhere with my friend who's half Spanish, half French. And he suggested, hey, you're kind of lost and you don't really know which way to go and what you want to do. Why don't you think about doing the Camino de Santiago? And I had never heard of it. I was like, well, what is that? And as soon as he told me what it is, I was just immediately enchanted, just immediately sort of engrossed by the idea of, spending 30 days walking across the Spanish countryside, meeting all these other lost souls. And, I don't know, I love hiking, and I really love being outdoors. And so the thought of, I'd never heard of this type of thing, like through hiking, for example. I'd never even heard that of where people do things like that, where they pack a bag and they live in that backpack and they walk from point A to point B, So this, my hiking at that point had always been like a loop. You go home, you leave your home, you go out and you come back. So this
like
just sounded like
one day, just a normal, excursion type of thing.
Exactly. So this immediately sounded really exciting to me. And I mean, until I did the Camino, from the time that he told me about it, I never really stopped thinking about it. It was always kind of in the back of my head somewhere, like, you should stop everything you're doing and go do that.
So that was in which year?
That was 2011.
2011. So that's the first time. No one, living in the States, traveling worldwide, never heard about the Camino, the movie, any book. No one of your friends have ever even thought about walking it, or nothing that you know?
Not up till that point, I'd never heard of it. I think I may have seen a few like of the Camino shells, because I did quite a lot of hiking in the area where I lived in France, and every now and then I would come across one on a trail, and I would ask my friends what it was, but no one had really clearly explained to me what exactly it was. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the movie The Way with Martin Sheen came out that year. And that's what really, I guess, if I remember, and I could be totally wrong about that, but in my head, 2011 sounds like the year that came out. And I think that was what really sparked the sort of interest in the Camino in the United States. I think before that, it wasn't really something people knew much about. That's my understanding.
Yeah, no, the movie for sure was what sparked in the Camino. For Germans, is the book about the comedian. Everybody has their own little thing. And for me, one of the things that I think is funny, and I just remember we didn't speak about it this morning, is how the Camino, is like those songs that you learn, for us Spaniards, when we learn songs in English that we were kids, we learn the lyrics, but we don't know what it says, but they're all in there. Suddenly there's one point in your life that your English is good enough or your language is good enough, and you realize it's like, wow, that has been all my life with me, but suddenly I know the meaning, no? So the
Yeah, yeah,
Camino
yeah.
is like that, you see all the cells, you see all the signs, but suddenly there's one day that you realize, I'm like, oh, this is talking to me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So what happened with you? I'm like, you move all over the world, you start working in France, you learn about this Camino, but you still didn't make the step forward, or the Camino didn't call you. So what happened during the time that you first discovered the Camino till the day that you finally said, it's time to go?
Yeah, so in the end, I decided my plan was to do the Camino before I left and went back to the United States. And then
Mhm.
for reasons that I don't really recall, I decided not to do that. And a friend of mine came to visit me in the United States. And, sorry, he came to visit me while I was in France, one of my very best friends. And he said, look, you're lost and you have no idea what to do. And for me, the answer is obvious. You need to come back to Austin, Texas, which is the capital of Texas. I'm from Dallas, Texas, in case I didn't mention that before. So Austin is not so far from where I was raised, and it's a very cool city. I'd always wanted to live there. It's a university town, and it's a music city. So it's often referred to as the live music capital of the world, because at any point, at any moment of the day, there are 100 musicians somewhere playing live music, and they're all fantastic. So my friend who was living in Austin at the time said, you need to just quit thinking about it. You need to just come back to Austin. You need to move in with him and his girlfriend, Melissa, at the time, who was a friend of mine as well. You just move in with us. We have a spare bedroom, and you chase your music dreams. That's what you've always wanted to do. So why are you thinking any more about it? And I was like, oh, well, that actually somehow feels kind of right, which was surprising because I had no intention of going back to the US at that point. So I decided to go back to the US. I went back to the US and I spent about 18 months in Austin chasing the music dream, playing music all the time, playing as much as I could, really trying to make my dreams of being a musician, whatever that means, happen. And, after 18 months or so, I was just totally burned out. I think when I look back on it now, I think of all the different things that I could have done to enjoy that time more. But it was a really difficult time in my life. And although I was doing the thing that I love more than anything, I was never so miserable. I was so depressed. Severely depressed. I was in therapy for the first time, which was very necessary. But definitely unexpected,
That's one of the things
And
that surprised me the most. Now that right now people think that when you're successful, you're doing what you love the most. You're, living your dream in close to your hometown with your people that love you. You're kind of like getting successful, but still you get burnout. And, that's a lot of people that when you go through burnout, and now that you're looking back, you can tell, no? But a lot of people, I think, how can someone be so successful, also looking so normal? Because probably for the rest of the world, you were just a happy person living your dream, no?
Not if they heard my music.
Okay.
If they heard my music, they were like, "This dude needs some
There's
help." That's for sure.
something dark over there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think that was a big this word success. I think is it's really interesting because I think the word success really just means wealthy. That's really what we've come to change the word to mean. When we say success, we don't mean what we mean is that someone's making a lot of money. That's really what we mean. Because when you think about somebody successful, you don't think about somebody who's happy and barefoot and living in the street. Even if they're really happy, you'd never say like, oh, they're successful. We mean they're making a lot of money. And I can assure you at that point, I was not making a lot of money. I didn't feel successful. And although I suppose, I think I should have because what I was doing, and again, in retrospect, I realized I was chasing my dreams. I was doing something that was really brave and something that could have been very fulfilling if I had had a better perspective on what was happening in my life. But instead, it just felt like every day I was just a loser. I was playing music, but I didn't have much of a following. Nobody was coming to my shows. I was playing to empty bars. When I would play, nobody would listen. I just felt really bad about what I was doing. And even though I was getting better and better and better as a musician, I just felt worse and worse and worse. And before long, I decided, okay, I'm leaving. I want to leave the United States. I want to leave where I am. I'm not happy. And as I was telling you this morning, I think, at the time I thought, I had a friend ask me, because at this point I had already lived in Mexico briefly. I lived in South Korea for 18 months teaching English. I lived in France for 9 months. I lived in Spain for 6 months. So at this point in my life, I'd been around a little bit. And I had a friend, when I told them that I was going to move back to Europe after my time in Austin, he said, Blake, what are you running from? And I said, I'm not running from anything. I'm running towards something, which at the time felt very profound, right? As a 24-year-old, I was like, I'm doing so. But now in retrospect, I realized like, no, I was fleeing. I was sad, and I was sad is the wrong word. I was very severely depressed. I was extremely unfulfilled and unwell. And the only solution that I had was to run away as fast as I could, because if it's not working here, maybe it'll work better there. All the problems are just where I'm like related to where I'm living, obviously, right? Like it couldn't possibly be what's going on in here.
Yeah.
So I packed up my bags, and at that point I wanted to do the Camino, and my plan was to return to Europe, do the Camino, and then move somewhere. I hadn't decided where. And I'm trying to, there we go. Move somewhere, and then I don't know, start over again, find a job, move on, forget my dreams, forget music. I was done. And that was my plan. And then I met a beautiful woman who I fell madly in love with, who happened to live in Europe already. She was European. She was studying in Austin at the time. And so I decided, well, I was already going to go back to Europe. Instead, I'll just come back and we'll start something new together. So the Camino was put on hold yet again. And I moved back to Europe, but I did not do the Camino. And it took me another 3.5 years before I would finally actually, and I moved back to Europe in 2014. And in 2017 is when I finally did the Camino. So it took another 3 years before it happened.
It is funny. Here we have a question that I want you to answer this. Do you guys think there's still someone out there that has no idea what the Camino is?
I don't know the answer to that question. I feel like I'm so deep in it that my world is like, that's a huge part of my like life experience. There must be people who have never heard of it.
Well, I have to say, I think that once you get into this world, it's like when I talk to my young entrepreneurs, you see the world through this hole, and everything around it, it's just like so weird. There's no one out there that hasn't heard about the Camino. But I think, there's still a lot of people that haven't heard about the Camino, and a lot of people that need it. I'm like, I live in Pamplona. And a lot of people that haven't even seen the movie The Way. They don't even know that the movie The Way was recorded here.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, I take my friends up to the Perdón. They haven't even hiked the Perdón. I'm like, we went on Monday with two of my best friends. They never hiked the Perdón.
Okay.
And it's here like 1 hour from my house.
It's sort of one of those things, right? The things that are like closest to us, well, I'll do it another time. I can do it anytime, so why would I do it now,
I think it's like what you're saying, I'm not just running from something. I'm running towards something. When we see something so close, I was talking with someone yesterday, that's one of the things, like I will do national tourism once I get older. I will do Spain once I'm older. This is still a huge wall out there waiting for me. So I guess it is, but I guess we'll have to ask all your friends, do the trick, ask 10 of your friends and see how many know about the Camino de Santiago.
Yeah, I would guess that outside of Spain, there's probably a very, very large number of people who have never heard of it still.
Yeah. And in Spain, we have the opposite. They have heard of it, but they've never done it.
Yeah. Which is also, I actually was surprised how many Spaniards were on the Camino when I was on the Camino. I just thought, like, if I were Spanish, I can't imagine I would actually do this. And then I just imagined it would be people from all over the world except Spaniards, but it was full of Spaniards who were like, this is a national pastime. It's wonderful.
It is weird because it's only during the summer, during the rest of the year, there's a lot of internationals, but not many Spaniards. And one of the things that I realized in my group, I was the only Spaniard walking on the Camino, really. I did my first time in August, and the rest were mostly Italian, Germans, so all kinds.
Yeah, when I did the Camino, I started at the very tail end of August in 2017, and at that point there were quite a few Spaniards on the Camino. But maybe it's also because I wasn't on the Frances. Maybe like the Frances has fewer Spaniards because they know how busy it is. I don't know.
Yeah. So then that time in your life, as I said, you don't decide to do the Camino. The Camino suddenly gives you the call. What happened that you were like, right now is the time?
Yeah. So at the time, so when I moved to Berlin, as I said, I had given up music. I was broken and I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I thought to myself, okay, you know what? I tried chasing my dreams and that was not good, to put it lightly. So I'm going to do what I've been told to do my whole life. I'm going to just settle down. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to make my money and I'm going to have like the comfortable life. Good job, vacation, you have your weekends and your evenings free and you don't think about anything. You just do the work. And I worked for a startup here in Berlin for about 3.5 years. And I started working for that company when it was very, very new. So I was like the 8th employee. And I'd really grown a lot with the company. I'd seen it go through a lot of changes and growth. And the company had done very well and then suddenly wasn't doing so well. And I had been there through all of that. And at the time, it was it was decided that there would be a round of layoffs, and I was on the list of people who was getting laid off. And it was really shocking, and I really hadn't anticipated it, because I'd been there since the beginning, and I mean I had put a lot of time and energy and care into the job that I had, and suddenly it was being taken away from me, not because I was a bad employee, but just because investors weren't happy with the numbers and they wanted the company to save money, and the fastest way to do that was to get rid of people. So I remember when my boss told me that I was going to be laid off, I went back to my computer, and at the time I was doing web development for the company. And I remember sitting at my desk and looking at like these lines of code and just like unable to read them, and thinking to myself, first of all, I can't believe they're firing me after everything I've done for this company, like indignant and very arrogant. And then my second thought was, all right, screw it then. I'm walking the Camino. Like, this is the time. This is the one.
You went from living in France, being all teacher all over the world, you went back to Austin, being the musician dream, suddenly to a coder in Germany?
Yeah, I thought at the time all I wanted was security. I thought, like, if I can just get a job that will make me feel secure, because I know I want to travel, I know I want to live abroad, and if I have a web developer, I'll always be able to find a job, I'll always make good money, and I'll always be able to get a visa. But, I'm not a very good web developer, it turns out, because I actually don't really care about it. I don't like it. I did it, and I remember just, like, whatever, I did my job, but I was just like, I was not fulfilled by that job at all. And although the circumstances were not great, I'm very happy for how things went, and I'm very happy that I lost that job, and I'm very happy that I was forced to like ask myself, do you really want to go down this path? Do you really want to sit in front of your computer all day writing code? Is that who you are? Is that what you do? And as it turns out, no, it is not, which I knew all along.
I was a computer engineer also, and I hate writing code. It's one of those things I don't get it how people can do it. But I have friends that love it. And that's the beauty of life, deciding what do you like, what you don't like, and throw it in away.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I think the sooner we can start recognizing like what's truly happening right here, you know what I mean? Like what truly makes your heart sing and what really doesn't. And I was just confused, I thought like, oh, if I just live a comfortable life, then I'll feel okay. But it turns out that even though I was comfortable, I was still really, really unfulfilled. I was really unhappy, and I didn't like what I was doing at all. So when I lost the job, I thought, okay, I have no idea what to do now. I have invested all this time in this company, which is now like all of my time and energy. It's basically just taken away from me. I have nothing to really show for it. I don't know what I want to do. All I know is that I can't do any of the things that I've done before. Like I can't go back to teaching English. I can't go back to being a recruiter or working in web development or working in a startup. I can't go back to I don't want to go back to playing music. So I have no idea what to do. And I thought going on the Camino would at least just give me a chance to have some time, to think about it, away from the stresses of your daily life, away from the stress of being unemployed and laying in bed. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Who am I? Like, I thought at least I'll be walking. You know what I mean? At least I'll have to get out of bed if I go on the Camino, because they'll kick me out of the albergue.
At least at 9 a.m. I know they're going to kick me out, and I will be crying somewhere else.
Exactly.
Then one of the things that is, commonly, as we talked before, a lot of people, when they think about the Camino the first time, it's always the French Camino. In your case, you went straight to Del Norte. What happened for you to make that decision?
Well, I am not special, and the first thing I thought was to do the Frances, and so I planned to do the Camino Frances, the French way, and that was up until 2 days before I left. That was the plan. I'd already bought my plane ticket to Paris and my bus ticket to Saint-Jean-Port-de-Pied, where the Frances begins, and then I had a shoe issue because I bought some shoes for the Camino. I bought some like hiking boots, which looked really great. And they were, super German quality, and they were just made for tough terrain. But I'd never bought a pair of shoes like this before. So I thought that I'd sized them properly. And then I did some practice walking around like this nice like forest where I live. And I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I could not break these shoes in. And they were just, in the end, they were just too small. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'd lost my job. So what little money I had was very precious. And I'd spent €150, I think, on these shoes. And I was like, I can't take them back because I've already worn them. So but I don't know, I can't break them in. I don't know what to do. If I should just go in my Nikes that I wear every day, my sneakers, or if I should go buy another pair of shoes. So I called a friend up who lived in Austin, and she had done the Camino twice before already. And I was asking her about my shoes and what I should do. And she was like, look, honestly, your shoes, I'm not worried about. Wear your Nikes. Like you're not hiking Mount Everest. Like you're just walking. You're going to be fine if you just wear your Nikes. But please do not go on the Frances. Like don't go on the French way. I beg you. And she was saying, because I've done it and it's beautiful, but if you're looking for some solitude and some time by yourself and some time in the nature alone, you're not going to get it on the Frances. In August, the Camino Frances is like Disneyland. So if you go, you're going to be surrounded by people constantly, which isn't bad, but it's not what you want. So I recommend you do the Norte. And so because I was so worried about like, I'd heard these horror stories of like having to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and like run to the next albergue and like knocking people out of the way so you can make sure you get a bed, like buen camino. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go do the Norte. So 2 days before I left, I changed my bus ticket from Paris. Instead of going to Portapié, I went to a city called Bayonne, which is right outside of Irún, where the Camino Norte begins.
Incredible. It's incredible how a lot of things. And the more stories I hear about the Camino de Santiago, the more there's always that little change at the end. In my case, I was supposed to be starting on a Wednesday. Something happened and I have to wait for a week. That made me able to meet my Camino family that was also there for. So those little things that, when you look forward and you look backward, you're like, as we talked before this morning, all these things take you to where you are today. Be proud of them, even if they are bad or if you don't feel like they're good things. But so you get to finally the Camino, you are ready. Did you plan, were you just, all your plans just changed it because of your friend, or were you ready to walk the Camino Norte? You have all the stages written down, or what happened with that?
Yeah, so I found a guidebook online and I'd printed it all off at a copy shop before I left, and like that was one of the last things I do. Like now I've changed caminos, I have to find a guide for the Camino del Norte because I still didn't understand. I still didn't understand how the Camino works. I still didn't get that like one of my biggest concerns before I left for the Camino was I'm gonna get lost. I'm gonna be like in the middle of nowhere. I'm gonna be starving in the woods, and I'm gonna be like attacked by a bear. Like I really thought, and I remember specifically, one of my first fears was, how am I going to get out of Irún, which is the very first city? It's the very first city you're in. And I thought, like, what am I going to do when I wake up in the morning and how am I going to find the Camino? And so I had this guide and I was all prepared. And then I got there and I remember the very first day, like I had this guide all printed out. It was all like in plastic sheets so it didn't get wet and get ruined. And the first day I walk out of the hostel and I was like, oh, look, a yellow arrow. Oh, look, another yellow arrow. Oh, and all right, guess I don't need that, So from then on, it was just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants. Some of my Camino family, they really enjoyed, one of the people in particular really enjoyed writing down like where she wanted to go next. And so she had a guidebook, and every day after we'd arrived at the albergue, she would kind of say what she wanted to do the next day. And she just had similar taste to me. So I was like, all right, whatever you're doing, that sounds good. I'll follow you until we get there, And so from then it was just, my plan was really out the window. I just walked until I didn't want to walk anymore. And then I would find an albergue.
That's fun because a lot of people, they said, when you find your Camino family, I think everybody needs in their family that planning, the person that has everything planned, that at the end, you don't give a fuck. I'm like, who cares about the next albergue? You may have thought, because someone has spoken a YouTube video or on a blog, they say, oh, this albergue is amazing. But then you go to the different one and ended up being incredible. So you need the planning. You need an Italian to be the cooker, because the one that is going to be the one making all the pasta. You need a Spaniard to tell you, to translate whatever it is. And there's always that party guy that wants to party every day. So I think it's funny how all the families that I met, they all have those little roles.
Yeah.
I don't know which role was you in your Camino, but we'll talk about that later. So finally, you arrive to Irún, you start walking, you see, oh, this is easy. It's just follow the yellow arrows. How was the first 2 days in the Camino? How did it feel from your perspective from, the 5 years ago that you heard the first time about the Camino?
It was everything I wanted it to be. And it was, it was far better than I had anticipated. It was just way better than I expected. And also, I think those first 2 days are particularly on the Camino del Norte. They're really beautiful. They're so impressive. You're like, when you walk from Irún to San Sebastián the first day.
Did you took the longer version from the cliffs?
That's right. So you're going up and down these cliffs. You're 100 meters above the water. It's ocean views everywhere you look. It's just astounding. And of course, I had planned on doing the Frances. So it was a total surprise that I was getting these ocean views and that I was walking next to the ocean the whole time. So, I was really, it far exceeded my expectations to begin with. And as well, I think for me, especially, it was such a relief to be finally on the Camino. When I left Berlin, I flew early in the morning. I think I left at like 4 in the morning. I arrived in Paris. I had to spend the whole day in Paris. My bus left at 10 p.m. Then it rode
Wow.
overnight to Bayonne. And then in Bayonne, I had to spend the whole day there before I could take a train to Irun, which had I known, I would have just walked from Bayonne to Irun, because you can. The Camino is there as well. So anyway, I'd spent like 3 days basically without talking to a human, without sleeping. I was exhausted. I was broken. I was scared the whole time. My brain was racing. Like, why did you come here? What are you doing on the Camino? You don't have a job. You don't have a future. Like, and you're walking across the country. Who do you think you are? So I was really like, the only company I had was this horrible asshole inside my brain. Yeah, who really was not happy with the decisions that I had been making to go on the Camino. And so those first 2 days especially were just, I met so many wonderful people. I had this, like, I finally had some human contact. I was in nature. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. It was far more beautiful than I'd hoped. And it really showed me, because up until then, my greatest fear was that I wouldn't be able to complete the Camino. What I thought that meant at the time was arriving to Santiago. And now, of course, I look at it, and whether you walk a mile on the Camino or 1,000 miles on the Camino, it's all doing the Camino. There is no completing the Camino. And this idea of arriving in Santiago, I mean, it's just, Santiago is just a reason to walk, but it's not, it's a reason to be on the Camino, but it's not like the reason you're on the Camino. It's just an excuse to go forward. And I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to complete the Camino, that I would fall, that I would get hurt, that I would break my legs, that I would just, I would get too depressed, and I would hate it. I would be, I would just be unable. And so for me, those first 2 days really showed me, oh, I can do this. Like, as long as I wake up and I put on my shoes, there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing this if it's what I want to do, if I want to continue. And it's really fun. I didn't anticipate it being so fun. I was thinking about this spiritual journey and like finding myself and finding a purpose and blah, 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 blah. And really, it was like, man, you're just walking all day long in beautiful countryside. You're meeting the loveliest people. Everyone is so nice. Everyone's a pilgrim. Everyone feels like they're part of this community. There's like a really fun sleepover vibe, in the albergues. It's like you're all having an adult slumber party, and you wake up in the morning and, oh, buen camino, and you meet people. It's fun, and I hadn't expected it to be fun. So it was
we don't really, but it's like a sleepover than when we were kids, but just as adults, that we put alcohol, we put parties, and we put walking, but it's something that we don't do on a normal day. And then you go to the Camino and it feels so different, so new, so refreshing, no?
I loved that. One of the things that I loved about the Camino, and I write about it in my book, is that the people, like, all the albergues closed, all the lights are off at 10 p.m. And at first I thought, like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like that. I'm a night owl. I can't sleep, which I couldn't sleep. I had the worst insomnia of my life. The entire Camino, I probably slept like 2 hours a night. I just couldn't sleep. Yeah, I couldn't sleep at all. But I remember, even still, I loved how it worked. The Caminos, the albergues, they close at 10 p.m. It's lights out. So at 9:30, everyone's getting in bed, everyone's getting in their sheets, and you kind of know the people that you're walking with. You're kind of walking with the same group every day, more or less. Even if you're walking alone, you all kind of make the same distance every day. So the people you have in one albergue are often the same people who arrive at the next albergue. Yeah. And so you already know everybody, and everyone's chatting, and just everyone's getting ready for bed together. Everyone is tired together. Everyone is so ready to sleep together. Everyone is like dirty and sore and in pain. And before you know it, it's like, okay, the lights are out and everybody's like, oh, good night, good night, good night, good night. See you in the morning. Have a nice night. Sleep tight. Have sweet dreams. Like, it's just such a warm and inviting feeling, and it's something that, as you said, as adults, you don't experience this. When was the last time you went to sleep in a room full of adults? You know what I mean? That wasn't like your partner.
Everyone, good night, have a well sleep. It feels like fake, but it's real. And the Camino, when it happens, it's real. People don't think about it, but you're just having a huge sleepover with people from ages from 18 up to even 70.
Yeah. And, even though I couldn't sleep, and even though there's always somebody in your albergue, whether there are 10 people sleeping in your albergue or 1,000 people sleeping in your albergue, there's at least one person who snores like a freight train barreling down the tracks. Like, how they manage to sleep, I don't know. I certainly couldn't sleep when there were people doing that. But even that didn't bother me, because, it just thought, like, man, they're a pilgrim too. Like, they're just on this journey with me, and this is part of it. Like, we're all just trying to get some rest together. And I don't know, it's really beautiful.
And one of the things that, you were saying at the beginning, sometimes the Camino, we have make and created this, this Disneyland, sometimes all these blogs, these books, these posts, these podcasts, I'm like, we are all, and it's our human, nature just to promote what is positive, what is good about life. But sometimes, as we were talking this morning, and I think right now, that we lost the purpose of to get to the points on life where you're happy, the good points you have also need to go to the bad ones.
Mm.
I mean, to enjoy, a lot of people, I love hiking, and people tell me, why do you go to the mountain? I'm like, just for the views. And when I go down, the beer tastes so much better.
Mm.
But to be able to enjoy those views and to be able to enjoy that beer, I need to suffer in order for that to feel so good. And we
Mm.
talk about that, and in your journey, you clearly said in your book that, all the bad parts is a part of life, but maybe sometimes we just create this time, and you said before, people talk about the Camino, nobody says nothing bad usually about the Camino. I just spoken with a couple of people that don't like it or didn't like it at all, but no one hates it.
Mm.
But also in all the books and all the guides, people, they never talk about anything bad on the Camino. But in your case, in your book, you're real clear. There was some days that you suffer in the Camino. What happened on those days?
Well, usually those days started off with me realizing I was covered in bed bug bites. I'm like leery to say that because I would hate to think, I don't know, I don't want to talk bad about the Camino, but I had a problem with bed bugs the entire time. Even though like at one point when we were in Oviedo, I was so covered in bed bug bites. And of course, like I'm trying to hide that I'm covered in bed bug bites because if the albergue hospitalero sees me covered in bed bug bites, like, you're not sleeping here tonight. We don't want you in here. And I was like, it's not my fault that I have bed bugs, apparently. So, I mean, even though I like basically I washed all my stuff in like 100-degree water and everything, I still had bed bugs. All my Camino family had no problem, but I was covered in bug bites the whole time. That was horrible. There are days where the walking isn't fun anymore. There were definitely days where you're not walking through beautiful countryside. You're walking through horrendous industrial wasteland. Like on the Norte in particular, I think there's a lot of walking on asphalt. There's a lot of walking on the highway. So you're like walking along the highway in the middle of an industrial waste zone outside of Bilbao, and there's cars racing past you, and your feet hurt because you're walking on asphalt, and your hips hurt because you're walking on asphalt. It's hot, it's muggy, it's rainy. There are days where you don't really like the people, you don't click with the people that you meet. There are days where the albergue doesn't feel like this fun family environment. There are days where it feels like everybody's in your way and you're in everybody's way. You know what I mean? And it doesn't feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Those days happen. And there are days where just up here, I certainly felt that I wasn't enjoying it because I was not in a good place in my head. I was tired. I was alone. I let my anxiety and my depression get the better of me. And there's that moment where you realize, like, I still have 600 kilometers to go. I'm not even almost there. And so somebody told me that the Camino has like 3 parts. The first part is like the physical part, and the second part is the mental part, and the third part is the spiritual part. And that it's the first part where it's like the hard thing is the physical stuff. Every day your feet hurt, your shoulders hurt. I had no idea that like my shoulders and back, and I didn't know all of this could hurt so much. And then once you start getting used to that, once you finally start like, okay, your body has gotten used to the Camino, you're strong, you feel good, you don't get sore anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Then suddenly you're looking around and you're not like, you're kind of bored, like, or you feel like the novelty has worn off. Or maybe, as I said, you're walking through some ugly parts of the Camino, because there are plenty of very ugly parts of the Camino. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of beautiful ones and plenty of ugly ones. And you're like, this is not what I signed up for. I came here for forests and countryside, and I'm in the middle of like some abandoned warehouses and some abandoned factories that haven't been used in 80 years. And then your mind starts to get a bit frustrated that that's what you're experiencing. And that's where and then you also remember, I've got 600 kilometers to go. And that's very scary, because you're like, if I hate it today, what's it going to be like tomorrow and the day after and the day after? And then when you finally get through the mental part and you're like, okay, this is good. Like, I get it. It's just you keep walking, you find your fun. Yes, it's not a beautiful part of the Camino, but that's okay. What can I look at that's interesting? What can I look at that's exciting? Who can I talk to? What can I do for myself to find my fun as I walk along the ugly parts of the Camino? And then as soon as you get there, that's when I experienced like the third part, this like spiritual part, where you start to, now your brain it's focusing on what's inside. It's not focusing on the pain in your body. It's not focusing on the pain of the experience. It's focusing, for me, it was focusing on all that stuff that I don't look at every day, because it's easy to work really hard on all the things I'm working on. It's easy to check Instagram incessantly. It's easy to call a friend. It's easy to whatever. And suddenly you're alone and your body doesn't hurt and you're not annoyed by what you're looking at. And your brain starts to go, okay, what's this feeling that I'm having right here? I've never I don't often look at that. And then it comes up, and that's the spiritual part, you know, where you start to really ask yourself the important questions, or what I think a lot of people go on the Camino to ask themselves.
And that's one of the things that you pointed out. And I think, you know, a lot of people, when they ask me what is the best part of the Camino, when they think of the Camino Frances, everybody thinks, you know, the first part, because it's the mountains, is getting to Pamplona. That is the most beautiful city in the world with the best people in the world, but or getting to Galicia, no? But I really, you know, now that when you look back, and I will say the Meseta is one of the most beautiful and hardest part, because that's, as you say in your book, you know, when all your demons come out, but also when you are able to fight all those demons. The Camino prepares you, and the beginning is the fun part, the new, everything is exciting. So you are getting ready. The Camino is just letting you get ready to fight the fight that is coming. And then once you have the fight, that's when you become the spiritual, the yogi, the whatever, you know, you're gonna call it. And that's when you get ready to arrive into your Santiago. And I say your Santiago because your Santiago can be anywhere. It can be Santiago, it can be Muxia, it can be in your house. Santiago, as you say before, you know, is a place, but it's not a place. It's a feeling, it's a moment in your journey when you realize that Santiago is not the end. No? So in your case, one of the things that I would like you to share, you know, was there any tool that you use in your everyday? You know, you were going to the Camino with a huge backpack full of things, and there's a couple of things that you point in your book that I think they are great tools that maybe people will be able to use in their Caminos or in their everyday lives.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to keep my backpack as light as possible. So I think I would have packed a few extra things if I were to do it again. But one of the most important tools, the thing that which is, you know, the whole reason that my book now exists, was a journal. I took a cheap notebook and a pen, and every day I would sit down and I would write in my journal. I would write about the things that I felt while I was on the Camino. I would write about the things that I thought about, the experiences that I had, good, bad, didn't matter. I would just write. And part of that process every day, and this is something that I still do to this day, is I would write down 3 things that I was proud of and 3 things that I was grateful for. And this is something that I discussed with my therapist. It was a sort of an assignment that he gave me when I was in therapy a few years ago. And he said, you know, I want you to start writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day and 3 things that you're proud of that you've done. And he told me, you know, you're going to hate me for this. For the first 90 days, you're going to hate me because it's not easy. And I thought, well, how hard can it be? It was horrible. I hated it. I hated it so much starting it because, you know, when you're somebody who suffers from depression and anxiety, and maybe when you're not, maybe when you're just a normal person in this world where you're surrounded by so many amazing, inspiring people and, you know, successful people. I say that, you know, in quotations. It's easy to get down on yourself, and it's hard to. I think we're often not taught to be proud. We're not taught to feel proud. We're taught to be humble. We're taught to not think about the good things that we do. And there's nothing wrong with being proud. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing something and feeling good about it. So, as I said, you know, and it can be super small. And in the beginning, I was always looking for, you know, okay, did I change someone's life, or did I like invent something new? And then I realized, like, you can be proud of a very small thing. Like, for example, calling your mom and saying, "Hi, I just wanted to let you know I love you, and I
may be
care
pretty
about
big
you."
for something.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you can be grateful for the tiniest thing. It doesn't have to be that, like, you won $1 million in the lottery. It can be that a small bird sat on the chair next to you when you were at the park and it was beautiful and you got to see that. And so this tool really was a very important part of my Camino because, you know, there were days where my mental health was not good. Even though I'm in the midst of this beautiful experience, you know, it's still hard, and you're still there with your thoughts, and you're still there with who you are. And being able to sit down and write in my Camino journal every day, 3 things that I was proud of, 3 things that I was grateful for, it just kept me focused on the positive in my life, because there's never a shortage of negative things in our lives. Never. We always have plenty of negative things to focus on. And simultaneously, we always have plenty of positive things to focus on. Even if it's just like, today, my knee didn't hurt when I was walking up the mountain. That's excellent. So happy about that. You know, I'm so grateful for that. And so that and just journaling in general, you know, not only do I now have this beautiful document that I can always look back on and remember my Camino and all the details that I would have completely forgotten about if I hadn't written them down, it also really helped me to process all the things that come up. And I think, interestingly, I thought that all of my most important thinking would be done while I was on the Camino, while I was walking. You know, you're in nature and you're walking, and that was what I thought would happen. But actually, when I was on the Camino, I was doing almost no thinking because I felt like the Camino really commands your attention. It demands your attention because if you slip, if you fall, if you hurt yourself, if you miss the arrow, if if you're not being careful and paying attention, you can get injured. That was for me what I felt like. And interestingly, it wasn't until I would arrive at the albergue and I would be so exhausted and I'd be so tired and I'd be sitting by myself. And then all of a sudden, I didn't have the strength to keep up all the walls in our heads that we keep up, to block out the things that we don't like to think about. That strength wasn't there anymore. And those walls came down. And that's when all of the feelings and the emotions and the thoughts, not on the Camino, but after I was done for the day, that's when all the stuff came up. All the interesting, good, bad, juicy stuff came up. And the journal served as a way to filter that information and not just like sit and think about, oh, I'm lost, I'm scared, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Instead, I could put it on paper. What am I feeling? What does that mean? Where do I want that to take me? And how can I interpret this emotion or this feeling that I'm experiencing right now? So those were I think my two biggest tools. Those there. And I don't know if I had to say a third tool that kept me that I'm really happy that I had on the Camino. Bring walking sticks. Whoever you are, if you're listening to this, please bring walking sticks. You will be so happy that you have them. Oh man, I would recommend it. You don't use them? No,
I hate them. I got one for free and I throw it away.
But you only had one.
I don't care. I don't like walking sticks. I like to put my fingers in my backpack. I like to feel my hand free. That's one of the things and I love that you said, because when people talk about walking sticks, people talking about backpacks, people talking about what kind of shoes to wear, there is no one fit all in the Camino. I've seen people walking barefoot, people with the worst, most horrible hiking shoes that they were heavy, and they love it. Some people that wear three pairs of socks, people that wear tights. I'm like, I've seen it all.
Yeah.
There is no magic. It's just try and find whatever suits you and fits you.
One of the people who was in my Camino family, he wore jean shorts every single day of the Camino. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's a crime. I have no idea
what was going on his body, but there's no way you can walk 700 kilometers without having any kind of issues in your groin. There's no way.
I don't know either, man. I remember thinking that, like, okay, it really is whatever works for you, but I couldn't dream of wearing jean shorts. But I really like walking sticks. They kind of, they carry you forward, and I'm very clumsy. So if I was like falling over, I would like use the sticks to balance myself, especially on the Primitivo when you're going through mountains. I found them very useful. So my personal opinion. And they were,
we have Leigh that was signing off, and thank you. And
thank you.
That she said at the beginning, hate walking with sticks, but the Camino saved them. And I heard many people that said that, and right now here we see a lot of people doing northern walking, this kind of, that they are different than normal hiking sticks. So I guess I will give it a try. Maybe one day.
They saved my knees. I had knee problems as soon as I started getting on the Camino. Right before I left for the Camino, all of a sudden I started having knee problems. And I was like, how can this happen to me? I'm a young man and my knees are now broken. And so when I got on the Camino, I was like, I'll never make it if I don't have some walking sticks. They saved me for sure. And I had literal sticks because I didn't fly. I didn't have any with me.
In your pictures, you're really walking with the old style stick. And a lot of people, they think that, we call it the bordón, the big stick that the pilgrims used to carry. Yeah. That was for walking, and it wasn't. It was for protecting pilgrims from animals.
Of course. And other hungry pilgrims, I'm sure. Get back.
Yeah. Here, people really walk the Camino barefoot. Yep, more than one.
Yes.
But they've been walking barefoot. The guy I met was from Germany, and he was walking already barefoot for more than 3 years. But no one blistered, no nothing. Again, the whole feet was just covered in a humongous callus. You can burn it, you can pinch it. There was no way. I'm like, you can cut bread right there, like a cutting stick.
He's got a little cutting board.
Yeah, totally. So one of the lovely things that I love about your book is that when you talk about Santiago, and I feel the same way. I heard many stories about different Santiago, so we wouldn't go in that one right now. How was your arrival to Santiago?
Really unpleasant and very anticlimactic. When I was thinking about all the different ways I might arrive to Santiago, I really thought, like, doesn't really matter. As long as I arrive, I'll be very happy. And then I realized that was not true. There was one scenario that I had not considered, which I would be very upset about if it happened to me. And I didn't know that until it started happening, and that is rain. I hate being wet. I do not like walking in the rain, and I did not like wearing my poncho because it's not like it's hot and you're wearing this like big poncho. You're
Don't
sweating
use
underneath it.
ponchos. Don't listen to anyone that says ponchos. Ponchos are the worst for rain. You ended up wet inside, wet outside, and super warm. And it's like you are getting. I hate ponchos. I don't know why
It's
people still wear ponchos. They were from like 50 years ago.
yeah. I mean, I think it might have been better to just be like soaked from the rain because it's
Totally.
true that you just get really sweaty and hot and everything's sticky under there. It's not nice. And so I find myself covered in a poncho and it's raining just enough so that like it's not raining enough that you feel like, oh, I better just stop and wait for the rain to pass. You feel like I felt like I should keep going. But it
Mhm.
wasn't raining. It was still raining enough that like it was good to have a poncho and not feel completely wet. And I was so upset because I was like, it's my last day on the Camino and it's gray and it's raining and I hate everything and I hate the Camino and I can't believe this is happening to me. It didn't rain yesterday or the day before and now it's only raining because I think I had rain for like 3 days on the Camino, which is pretty amazing considering that I was
Yeah,
in
and
the
also
middle.
doing the norte because usually the north is much, being close to the sea and the ocean. And
Yeah. So I was feeling like it was just total. It was the worst luck possible. And then I was walking and I was grumpy and upset about it. And I turned around and I saw one of the people that I walked with almost every day, and she was there and she was under her poncho and she had this big huge smile on her face. She was just smiling, and I realized when I saw her like, yeah, this is funny actually. This is really funny because what this is a reminder. At least it was for me that arriving in Santiago is not the point. That is not the point. And I was actually, in the end, really happy as I thought about it, because now, of course, when you do the Camino and people ask you about the Camino, they always ask sort of like, which Camino did you do? When did you do it? And what was it like to arrive in Santiago? Those are the first three questions.
yeah.
And I think that it's crazy that that's the first question. Like, what's it like to arrive in Santiago? Because that's not the point. And so I'm really happy because now whenever anyone asks me that, my answer is always the same. It was unpleasant and it was anticlimactic, and it made me realize that it was never the point. It was never the reason to be on the Camino. And it is by no means my favorite part of the Camino. It's by no means the thing that I most remember when I think about Santiago, when I think about the Camino. I don't think, oh, the best part was arriving in Santiago. No, that was one of the like least exciting parts, actually. It was arriving in Santiago.
It is incredible because people, and for me, my first time in Santiago, I make it, I really start really early that day. I tell all my family, I'm going to arrive to Santiago by myself. So I probably was one of the first pilgrims. It was a beautiful day. Suddenly I arrived to Santiago. I fell into the floor and suddenly a group of people that were around start clapping. And it was amazing, but it still wasn't, what I expected. I have
Yeah.
more fun seeing others arriving, and it's nice that you see. And what we're saying this morning, when you go with expectation to the Camino may give you what you don't expect. And sometimes for you, it may look like bad, but that bad is what is going to take you to the great moment. And in your case, as you say, finally seeing the smile on your friend, arriving to Santiago, waiting for others, it make it more real and it making what it is, the Camino.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, it was definitely still like in the end a really beautiful moment right before we arrived in Santiago, like moments before we got to the plaza there. The rain stopped and we like tore off our ponchos and threw them in our bags and ran the rest of the way to make sure we didn't arrive in the rain. And, every 5 or 10 minutes, there'd be another pilgrim arriving who we knew, who we'd spent time with, and we were all celebrating together. It was still a beautiful moment, but it was by no means the most exciting part of my Camino. And I'm really happy to be able to have had that lesson, imparted upon me, that old cliche. Again and again we hear it, but it's, the destination is, what is it? The goal is not the destination, but the journey, or something like that. Now I don't even remember the cliche, but yeah, I felt very fortunate to be reminded of that.
That is one of the things that I love about your book, and one of the things is something that you did in Santiago, no? And I think it's the beauty of science, and we as humans have put a lot of science in our life and a lot of moments and a lot of things that we have to do. And they all serve a purpose. A lot of people, when they say, why you go to and put the stamps on or why you have to go to the albergue, why you do the Buen Camino, you say the Ultrella, why on Cruz de Ferro we carry the stone and we leave the stone in Cruz de Ferro, no? And tell us, what was that something that you did in Santiago that was, for some people, meaningless? For some people, they may even think that is a stupid sign, but for you, it was something special, even though it wasn't something that you would expect to be doing that day.
Yeah. So I was raised Catholic, and up until I was about 14 years old, I was very, very, a very devout Catholic, and I was really
Mhm.
believing. And then things changed, and I became it became the opposite, where it was I actually am. I have my issues with the Catholic Church, and to this day I do. And so when my friends asked me, should we go to the pilgrim mass tonight? I thought like, I might get hit by lightning if I walk into the church, because I have said a fair few things that God, if he exists, would not be happy about. But in the end, I decided to go precisely because of what you say. Symbols have power. They have power because we give them meaning. And so I decided to go to the pilgrim mass. And while the mass was taking place, I noticed to my left that there was a priest who was sitting by the confessional booth. And I thought, I'm going to go confess. Like, I'm going to confess my sins. If you're not Catholic, it's one of the sacraments of the Catholic religion is confessing your sins to a priest. And I hadn't done this in 15 or 16 years. But I thought, no, I'm going to do it. And so I went to the priest after the mass. He was very surprised. He said, I asked him, and he was like, no, most people don't. This doesn't really ever happen. Nobody comes to confess after Santiago. So he was very, very excited. In fact, he was so emotional at one point that he forgot like the prayer that he was saying. He was like, I'm sorry, I'm just so emotional. This never happens. Okay, give me a second. But I went and I confessed, which is something that I hadn't done, as I said, in 16 years. And it was a really powerful and very important moment in my life, because I confessed to the priest, as I mentioned in the book, that I've lived a life of sinning against myself by not treating myself with love and respect, by considering killing myself so many times and taking my own life because I just didn't have any value or respect for myself. And that is, if there is a sin, I think that's definitely one. And, not killing yourself, but having so little love for yourself.
Yeah.
And thinking about it the next day when I was on the Camino, I thought back on that and I was like, why did I confess? Was I confessing to the priest? Was I confessing to God? What was that about? And I realized that for me, at least, I think I was apologizing to myself. It was a moment to ask for forgiveness from myself and to tell myself and admit to myself that I've treated myself wrong. I've been wrong to myself, and I want to change that, and I'm going to change that. It was a moment where, okay, from here on out, I'm making the decision to be different and to treat myself with the love and respect that I give to other people. I'm going to give it to myself as well. Oh,
I agree.
Jazz, you're so beautiful. That's my friend Jazz. Hi, Jazz. Thank you so much for watching.
I think that, what you say over there, that the hardest thing right now to do in our life is to forgive ourselves. And I met so many people in the Camino and have interviewed so many right now off the podcast. And I can tell, that even if people without telling it, and for me, I have to read that I see not the same, is forgive ourselves. And I think the Camino is one of those things that teach you day by day, sometimes with a slap in the face, sometimes with a friendly face, sometimes with a cold beer, sometimes with all the beautiful and the bad things that happen in the Camino, that we have to forgive ourselves. And I really believe that we all go to the Camino with a backpack full of different things. But many times, and I probably can say that 70% of the time, we are all fighting with our inner selves of today that we don't have time on a normal day to fight with.
Exactly.
We let it grow, and then one day it explodes. And dealing with that, I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of the Camino, and why you say, that moment of finally confessing to yourself and letting yourself go and say, till today is the day. And that's the beauty of the Camino. It's not about getting to Santiago. Your journey began on the day that you talk with your friend and he presented you the Camino de Santiago. You start walking the Camino much farther.
Absolutely.
But you are still walking the Camino nowadays. And that's one of the things that I try to tell to people. Don't think about the Camino just about the physical Camino, because the real Camino, as you discover, the real Camino started that day when you probably exited the cathedral and saw again the Plaza de Obrador, and you're like, what the fuck am I going to be doing now?
Yeah. I write in the book as well, one of the hospitaleros that I had in Bodenaya, he said, el verdadero camino empieza después de Santiago. The real Camino begins after Santiago. And he was absolutely right, because the whole point of doing the Camino, well, I guess it depends. Everyone has a different reason for doing the Camino. For me, I went looking for answers, for perspective. And the question is, great, you did the Camino, you walked for 30 days, you accomplished this dream, and now what are you going to do with what you learned? And that was a real important lesson. And part of that is exactly as you say, learning to forgive yourself every single day, learning to treat yourself with kindness and respect, learning to take life as it comes, learning to respect what's going on, learning to accept the things that are happening to you and try to move forward as best you can. Yeah.
Totally. So what happens once a lot of people that, and well, that's one of the things that, if I can say something that is the best that someone ever told me about the Camino is, for the people that walk the whole Camino, I don't care if it's the Via de la Plata, del Norte, de Francés, give yourself an extra 3 or 4 days to do Finisterre and to do Muxia. For me, Muxia, I always finish my Camino no matter what in Muxia. It may be by car, it might be by bus, it may be walking if I am able to do it. But for me, they're two of the most special places of the Camino. In your case, you continue walking to Finisterre. How was those days?
They were very interesting. So I walked from Santiago to Muxia, and I remember the first day. It felt like that feeling when you're leaving a hotel, and you're like checking out. It's like, that this place that has been this sort of home for you, this escape for you, that you have to leave it. And there's this like beautiful feeling because you've gotten to have this wonderful experience. And there's also this heavy feeling of like, oh, I have to leave here. It's the same feeling I feel like you get when you're in an airport terminal and people are waiting to get on their flights. You can feel this sort of weight, and I felt that with every pilgrim that I met while I was on the Camino. But arriving in Muxia was a really powerful moment because, I saw the Atlantic Ocean and I thought like, look at that. I walked all the way across Spain. Oh my God, I walked all the way across Spain. Like, I walked all the way across Spain with my 2 feet. This is incredible, and I cried. I wept when I saw Muxia and the ocean, and there's just so much. There's so much energy in that place, I felt. And, we were all just so happy. It felt kind of like a bonus. The last 3 days, Muxia, Fisterra, they feel like a bonus. You finish the Camino and there's that scary moment where you're like, now what? And you're like, oh no, wait, I get 3 more days. Ha! Take that, life. I'll see you in a few days. It just felt really fun.
I really feel that way, when people are coming from the Francés, usually the last 100K, they're full of the not so-called pilgrims. I hate that because everybody's a pilgrim. You don't know what is going on and what is going through. The real pilgrim is something that goes here and goes here. But it's true that those 3 days are usually the people that have been walking, the long distance, the weirdos, the pilgrims. Also, you have all these kind of like weird, strange people in Fisterra and Muxia that lives there that have made their lives over there. So, but one of the things that you talk about in your book that you didn't expect at all is that magic moment that happened when you were in Finisterre at the lighthouse and suddenly one of the members of your family said something that meant a lot for you. What happened over there?
Yeah, so I had about, I think off the top of my head, there were about 5 people with whom I walked pretty much every single day and became kind of my Camino family. And my Camino family, my accent's all getting all fumbled up, but they became my Camino family. And we were sitting on the cliffs in Fisterra and watching the sunset. And one of the members of my Camino family was, he was giving a little toast, and he was 72 years old. So he was much older than the rest of us. And he was just this fascinating guy. And he was exactly the kind of person that I'd hoped to meet, somebody who had lived an incredible life, who had been extraordinarily successful in all the ways that you could possibly be successful, whether it be monetary or living the life that you want to live, however you want to measure that. And I felt like, he really, everything he said really meant so much to me. He was just I really had a lot of respect for him. And we're sitting there and he said, hey, I just want to say to all of you, I want to thank you so much for inviting me into your Camino family. You really made me feel so welcome. And I didn't expect to really have that on the Camino, I think because he was so much older than us. And he said, yeah, this has been a really beautiful Camino family. And he looked at me and he said, and I think Blake was the glue that held this Camino family together. So let's all have a toast to Blake. Here's to Blake. And everybody looked at me and raised their glass and toasted. And it was a really shocking moment because I think we often, I certainly, and I think many of us forget the impact that we have on other people, the way that we can positively influence the people in our lives, especially because we are often our own biggest critics. We're often so aware of our shortcomings. I certainly am so painfully aware of all of my flaws and all of my shortcomings. And it's rare that I give myself the opportunity to sit back and acknowledge something that I do well, something that I can be proud of, something that I can feel good about. It's rare that I acknowledge the power that I can have and the impact that I can have on other people. And when he said that, it really took me by surprise because it had never occurred to me that somehow my presence among this group of people had apparently held them together and kept this family united somehow. And it reminded me that, yes, even if I spend a lot of my days absolutely hating myself, the people around me don't necessarily feel that, and in fact, they might only see these parts of myself that I would never admit are there.
Mhm. It is incredible how we were talking this morning. The word you were saying were hope. No, everything is about hope. Everything is about seeing the good side on everything, and looking at. I really believe that the Camino have those jewels that they are waiting for you. And in your case, that was one of them. At the very, very end, one of the hardest part when you have to leave everyone behind and go, home. And I think that's the hardest moment in everyone's Camino is when you arrive home and you're like, how now do I take all the stuff that I learned? Because the Camino is, like we were talking this morning, it's a small, little wall where it's so easy to be happy. It's so easy to be living the moment because there's nothing to care. It's just, where I'm going to be eating the next tortilla, what is going to be my next beer, who's going to be the next person I'm going to be talking to. If I don't like it, I go to the next one.
Buen camino, next person. Yeah, exactly.
But when you're at home, I hear of people sleeping on their couch with a sleeping bag for 10 days. People walking home because they don't want to take the train or a bus. People that the next day, they don't know what to do.
I experienced this. I mean, I told myself that when I was done with the Camino, I still had like 10 days until my flight back to Berlin. And I thought, oh, I'll go play tourist in Portugal. I've never been, and I'll go spend some time in Portugal. I spent one day in Porto, and the next day I grabbed my walking sticks and I was back on the Camino. Like, I just couldn't stay off of it. And I think, as you say, it's so easy to be happy on the Camino. You're moving, you're meeting people, the sun is out, you have a purpose every day, and it's an easy purpose. All I have to do is walk. That's easy. We can accomplish that. And it's so full of beautiful moments. And then, when you go back to real life, as we say, although I would argue that the Camino is very much real life, it's a whole different ball game. And it's, how do I take all the things that I learned and how do I apply them to ensure that I'm living a better life if that's indeed what I set out to accomplish? I couldn't get off the Camino. And I think interestingly, you ask about Fistera and Muxia, like why should anyone take those extra 3 days to go? And this is something that the Camino also taught me, because when I went to Porto, I spent a day there and I thought, I have to go back on the Camino. And I got on the Camino Portugues and started walking back north. And I walked 37 kilometers that day. And I didn't know why, but I knew I couldn't stop. I wasn't done with the Camino. I needed to continue, and I continued. And when I was on the Camino Portugues, there was this thing called the ocean layer, which I'd never heard of, but I was walking, 10 meters from the ocean, but I couldn't see the ocean. I couldn't see anything because there was just this thick fog that covers everything. So the whole 37 kilometers practically, I was in this gray bubble. And as I was walking, I couldn't look at anything. There was nothing to occupy me. So I started thinking. And I started reliving my Camino, and I started going back over the whole Camino day by day by day by day. And I thought about all the beautiful details and, those moments where you cry and you laugh and you cry again and you laugh some more. And then I arrived at the last moment of the Camino in my head. And I just felt this like a sigh in my soul, and I thought, okay, now I'm done with the Camino. And I did. I went and I stayed in the albergue that night, and the next day I left and went to Lisbon. And what all of that for me is a chance to stop and reflect. And I think that this is something that I struggle with deeply. I think many of us do. As soon as we accomplish something, we're not going, cool, today is about taking the time to be happy, to celebrate that small victory, no matter how small it is, and just admire what I've done and take the time to reflect on what it taught me, what I learned, what was difficult, what was easy, what felt good, what felt terrible. We don't take the time for that. We just go, cool, check, and next. I got to have the next thing to post on my Instagram, to show to my friends, I got to be going farther, going faster, going harder. And that day, going on the Camino Portugues really reminded me of how absolutely vital it is that we take the time to stop and reflect, because that's where the learning happens. That's where the growth happens. That's where you start to understand the things that make sense in your life and the things that don't, the things that you love, the things that you hate, the things that you're good at, and the things that you don't enjoy,
It's totally true, because I truly believe that when people ask me, what is the magic of the Camino? And I think that the only key ingredient is that you're giving yourself time to reflect. It's the only place in the world right now that allows you to have fun. It's so easy because everything is there for you. Because there's so many other hikes. We have the PCT, we have the Belation Trail, we have the Inca Trail, but they are not so easy because it's more hiking. You have to be more ready for other things. But the Camino allows you to reflect, to have time for yourself, something that now we don't allow ourselves to even do it. I'm like, even myself. I try to keep busy. I have my bujo. I do my bullet journaling every day, writing, even just, going to what you say, writing down what I'm happy for, what I'm grateful for. It's a list of things that we have to check at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And I think that you hit the nail on the head there. Some people have asked me, but yeah, I remember someone saying to me, why would you do the Camino? Like, there's far more beautiful hiking that you can do. There are far more beautiful through trails that you can do. And I thought about it and I thought, well, I think one of the things that makes the Camino so powerful and so fun and so exciting is that it is not like a life or death type of hike. You know what I mean? If you do the Appalachian Trail, you can die. People do die, and
people
often
do die in the Camino. I'm like, that's still remember a lot of people. Really,
yeah,
many
right.
people die yearly in the Camino. It's not, but again, everything is so ready. If anything happens to you, you are one day apart to the closest town.
Exactly.
Even that's the farthest. In the Appalachian Trail, you can be 4, 5, 6 days into the mountains. You can really die over there from anything.
Definitely. And with the Camino, it's just everything that you need is there, and all you have to do is walk and enjoy, and anything bad happens, someone's going to be there. Anything that you need, you can find it. You need a bed to sleep in at night. You don't got to worry about your tent getting a hole in it, or like mailing yourself a new pair of boots 300 kilometers, down the road. It's all good. It's easy. Just wake up, walk with the pilgrims, and enjoy yourself. And that's something that I don't think you get. Eat tortilla, have coffee, swim in the ocean. I don't think you get that anywhere else like you do on the Camino.
So so we get going, and like, when did the book become, when you went to the Camino and writing your diary? For me, that's something that I imbibe so much. I hate writing. I tried, I can't. It's nothing. I can talk, I can take pictures, but writing is just something I need someone. I would love to write a book one day. But when did that diary, there was something for you that you think, maybe this is something that can help others. Maybe this is something that I need to give to the world.
Yeah. I left the Camino Portugués, as I said, and I went directly from Povo de Varzim. I went to Coimbra, and I'd never been to Coimbra, and I was spending time in this little city. It's a beautiful city, and there's not much to do. It's a very small town, so I just spent time reading back over my Camino journal, this thing that I'd been writing all this time. And when I finished reading it, I thought, I learned a lot. The Camino taught me a lot of things, showed me a lot of things. I learned a lot of things from myself, from my writing, from the work that I've been doing. And I thought, there are a lot of people out there who suffer from what I suffer from. There are a lot of people who struggle with depression, with anxiety, with feelings of low self-worth. And all of these things I addressed in my journal. That was the whole point that was the whole reason that I went on the Camino, was to address these things in part. And having written them all down, I thought, not everyone will have this privilege. Not everyone who suffers from depression or anxiety will have the privilege or the time or the money or the resources to go do the Camino, to have 30 days where they're not being bothered by the outside world. And if I got to have that privilege and I got to learn these lessons as a result of that time on the Camino, I think it would be in the pilgrim spirit, to continue and giving that on. And so that's when I decided, I think it might be, it's sort of a small idea. Maybe I could publish this journal and give it to the world. And maybe it could mean something to people and help people who are lost, just like I am, just like I was then. And that was when I decided that, little by little, over the last 3 years, to publish it.
I'm one of the lucky ones that's probably one of the first ones been able to read the book. I'm on my way of reading. I'm taking notes because I'm really liking it, because it's something, it's different. It's not the typical guide. It's not a typical beautiful book. There's beautiful moments. There's sad moments. It's your journey. And it's also on the Camino del Norte. There's something much different. What do you think the book offers to the readers that they're there? For people that have walked the Camino, what are they going to find? And for people that is looking for something to read, why they should read it?
I guess I would say that there are two things that I'm very happy about with this book. And the first thing is that it's, I call it a book, but I mean, really, it's just my journal. I published the journal as I wrote it down every single day. When I wrote the journal, I never intended for it to be published. It was private. It was for me. So I really tried to be as honest as I possibly could when I was writing. What was I experiencing? What was I feeling? What was going on in my head and in the world around me? So the book, the journal itself is as honest as I could make it. And I think then what that offers is a totally unique perspective on what one person's experience of the Camino is. And it's not about making it sound really exciting or making it sound really beautiful or showing only the good parts or only the bad parts. It really truly is just the experience, up, down, good, bad, ugly, everything in between. And I think that, that's something that I think that it offers a reader, is a window into somebody's mind, which is interesting because humans are endlessly fascinating. And the other thing that I hope that the book offers, the other thing that I hope anyone who reads it will take from it, is that there's always hope. That was something that the Camino really showed me, and I think that's something that I saw again and again and again throughout the journal. There is hope, and when I left for the Camino, I had very little, if any, hope left. I really, and at many points in my life, have come to a place where I had no hope left. And somehow something happens, and there's always that glimmer of hope that reignites a sort of desire or a passion or a hope or a need to continue going on. And I hope that if I can say the word hope 600 times in 1 hour, that will be a world record maybe. I would really like this book to impart that on the reader. There is hope as long as you know where to look for it.
And as long as you wait. One of the things that I love, and is the first thing that you read in your book is dedicate to anyone who has ever been lost and in need of a better companionship. And I think, nowadays we are all in one way or another in a point of our lives where we feel lost and we feel lonely and we need people. And that's the beauty, to know that there is a lot of pilgrims out there, that there is a huge community of people ready to help anyone, that the Camino is there for all of us, and we are all, walking the Camino every day. And you are the best life example of that. Bad things can happen in life, but it's not about the bad, it's about the best that can come after that. If we wait, and one of the things that has shown me the Camino is that the Camino has always something waiting for you. The only thing is that you don't know it yet, but it will be coming to you. It will make you smile. It will be your friend that is smiling to you on the day that you're raining. It will be some weird post on an Instagram. It can be everything and anything, but you just have to be open to listen to that. Sometimes we close ourselves and we don't listen to those great things. We just focus on, the bad, the dark, and it happens. And whoever tells you the opposite is a liar, and bad things happen in life, and it's just waiting for those great moments. And if you're not, there, just wait and, go for the Camino, go for a walk, and try to remember, get in touch with a pilgrim friend. Give us a call. I'm like, as you say in your book, you are there for anyone that needs help. And here you have the website, and we'll post the links on the post. But it's just that, being able to reach to someone if you are not able to do it by yourself, and being able to go for help. And I think that's the beauty of the Camino, that everything comes without asking in the Camino, but how we take it into every day and how we wait till the next Camino. Because as we were talking this morning, I think the Camino is just that place when you are able to recharge your Camino backpack. This is like Back to the Future. You need the Fluso converter, and we put all that junk in there. And that's what gives us energy to get back into our normal lives.
Absolutely. That's if I can say one last thing about my experience on the Camino, it's exactly that. There was something we joked about a lot, my Camino family and I, as we walked along, and I think we'd heard it, and I think I've heard many people say this: the Camino provides. The Camino provides, and it seems like when you're on the Camino, no matter what you need, you always get what you need when you need it. There's always suddenly it appears before you. And I've carried this into my life. This is one of those little things that I carry with me, and in those moments of darkness, in those moments of pain, in those moments of suffering, in those moments of need, I think to myself, the Camino does provide, and the Camino will provide, and it genuinely will. I don't know why. I don't know how it works, but if you can hold on and you can just wait and just have that faith, have that hope, the Camino does provide, and it has continued to provide for me time and again in all of my darkest moments, whether that be, as you said, a smiling friend, whether it be a new person in your life, whether it be, I don't know, a book arriving in the mail to offer you a bit of companionship. The Camino does provide.
That the day this arrived, I was so worried because I didn't order anything, and suddenly this guy called me. I'm like, I'm from Amazon. I'm like, there's nothing on my list. No one from my family users have ever told me, and I totally forgot. And suddenly I open, it's like, Blake's book, great. As you say, the stupidest thing that I wasn't expecting, it came on the weirdest day that I was a little, I was like, great, I have finally something. I have 5 books that I'm reading, but they're marketing, they're all boring. I'm like, I'm done. It was like, those little things that make your day. So
the Camino provides.
Provides, yeah. And as you say, we always invite everyone, if they like what we do, we like, to help us. We do this for the love of doing. So they can go to elcaminopeople.com, buy me a coffee. This is our own Patreon, their own buy me a coffee, so we don't have to pay fees to everyone. So if you like, I'm a coffee drinker. I love coffee, and I drink probably 7 coffees a day. So that helps me going. Anyway, Blake, thank you so much. It's been an honor being 1 hour and 20 minutes with you, and being 3 hours today talking with you, and that you make the time, to be with us, to tell us about your life, your story, and opening, because I really believe, and that's why the Camino was for me. The Camino is about the people, the stories of the people. The human race is about people, is what we learn from others that have gone through things that we may have gone through or not, but maybe waiting. And if one of the things that I can get from as far as I can read from your book, that it's going to help everyone, because at the end, what you went through and the way you did it and the way you're here, you're a great example of how we can, succeed in life, even though we believe that we are not succeeding. As you say, it's not about having $1 million and not having cars. It's about being happy with where you are and what you are, and the people you have around. And when you read your book and you see what you've been through and what you have become, it totally sees that you have been successful. And so thank you, congratulations. And as we always said, buen camino, ultrella.
Buen camino, Jose. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And here I have to say that Blake, thanks for sharing with us your camino. So you
Con
see?
gusto. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Anyway, everyone, we will be back next week. Will be Blake's, and there will be this podcast in Spanish and English, and we will hopefully be coming back with more live videos. If you have a story to tell, if you have a comment, if you have whatever, remember, we are delcaminopeople.com. Send us a message in any of the platforms. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We are not on TikTok, and I'm sorry, I'm not going there. But anywhere else, we are there. I don't know if you're in TikTok yet, or maybe thinking about it.
I have used TikTok, and my brain wanted to explode from overstimulation. So I have decided that is just one step too far for me. It's a great platform, not much respect, but my brain is like, I can't have this much stuff at one time.
For me, already too much with Facebook and with Instagram. So
yeah.
Anyway, thank you again, Blake. You know that next time you get into the Camino Frances, you have your house here. We will do we're going to spend one day trying all the tortillas here in Pamplona, and
that would be a joy.
And see which one is the best. So thank you again. I wish you the best, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks very much. If I can say one last thing before I go, I want to encourage anyone who's interested in talking to Jose to reach out. I think a lot of people, we're often very scared to share our stories, or we're very nervous that nobody wants to hear. And I must say that the moment I reached out to you, Jose, you were just so accommodating and so excited to listen and to share my story. And so I would like to encourage anyone out there who has something they'd like to be a part of this somehow, they'd like to share their story, get in touch with Jose. He is an absolute delight. He will make you feel so good and so welcome. So please, that's what this is all about. As Jose said, it's all about the people. And Jose is ready to show you to everyone.
We are getting ready with the whole idea. We have a big thing planned for September, October, so I will let it stay there. But I will say that this is all about, at the end, it's me just trying to revive my Camino. Every time I talk with one of you guys, it gets me back to the Camino. It gives me the energy to keep going. It shows me that there is great people, great things going on in the world. And it gives me that smile that, you can see when you are talking with someone about the Camino. It doesn't matter how many years ago it was. It doesn't matter that we just met you and I this morning face to face the first time. The Camino is magic. And
yes, it is.
By sharing your story, you are helping others. And even not just helping yourself. Why not?
Absolutely.
So, as we say, we'll see you probably soon, and buen camino, ultrella.
Buen camino, Jose.